Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June 9th, 2016 edition, episode number 67 of Balls Deep Sports Talk. I am your host with the one and only Scotty Ball. Thank you for finding your way to the show this week, whether it be via YouTube, SoundCloud, or my personal favorite way to enjoy the show, the free Spreaker app. Thanks as always, and if you have not done so yet, and you are a regular Balls Deep listener, Balls Deep goer, I should say, make sure to connect with me and the show on Facebook and Twitter. On Facebook, search Scotty-Ball, like and friend me. Do not like and friend me if you're not a sports fan, by the way. And follow me on Twitter at BDST Show. Now, if you have kept up with the show over the last couple months, you would have noticed that we're trying to limit the 2 and 3 and 4 hour mega diarrhea of the mouth episodes that we have had here throughout our 67 episode tenure with the show. And so, again, especially with it being summertime, people got things to do. You got stuff to do, I got stuff to do. So trying to keep the show between a 60 to 90 minute show where we're mostly going through a lot of news, so that and I'm not necessarily diving through, piles of facts on all the stories, but just trying to give you as many stories in the sports world as possible, so that you know what's going on and what's coming up. And then I will sprinkle thoughts and takes and analysis and stuff like that in there, as always. But we will be trying to keep the show more concise. So, with that being said, let's get to our general overview and outline for what's going to be talked about here on this week's episode. Now, there is a lot to discuss since we last talked sports here a week ago. We're back onto the weekly thing here again now. Not on that stupid every other week thing we had for the past month, but, doing what I can. So, we are definitely going to be discussing NBA and NHL finals. As you know, I put priority on this show when it comes to championships, regardless of, the popularity of the sport or anything like that. Championships get priority here on Balls Deep Sports Talk, so we'll definitely be discussing the NBA Finals and the NHL Final. We've got Game 5. Could be the decisive Game 5 in the NHL Final between San Jose and Pittsburgh, coming up tonight, as a matter of fact, here this Thursday, June 6th, 2016. And so we'll be discussing how that series has played out so far, what to possibly look for tonight, if there will be a Game 6 or 7, as well as a little bit of Minnesota Wild-related hockey news. They signed a new assistant coach here this week, and so I'll let you know who that is as well. Then we'll be discussing, and in no particular order, we will also be discussing the NBA Finals. Cleveland and Golden State played Game 3 last night in Cleveland. After the first two games, the Warriors won the first game by 15 points and the second game by 30 points, or 15 and 33, something like that. But anyway, the 45 to 48 point margin of victory was the largest ever in the first two games of an NBA Finals series. So they played Game 3 last night, coming off of two straight Cavaliers blowouts, even though Game 1 really wasn't a true blowout. And the Cavaliers were somehow the 1 point favorite in Vegas. Insane on those gambling odds, but they came out and won by 30 freaking points on their home court. So we will be discussing where we sit with the NBA Finals. There were some unique circumstances with the Cavaliers roster last night that, I've said all along that's a good thing, even though everyone else says it's a bad thing. But so we will be discussing those NBA Finals as well. If the Cavs can tie it up at 2 games apiece, even if they can they come back and win it? So lots of basketball to discuss, as well as the upcoming NBA draft, which will be happening in 2 weeks from today on June 23rd, and a Ricky Rubio talker that has got what has finally become a fairly unified fan base here for the Timberwolves in the state of Minnesota. Leave it to Ricky Rubio to come out and completely divide the fan base like it has never been divided before. We will talk that as well. We'll also be checking in on my and hopefully not your Minnesota Twins in their quest for epic, what's the word? Epic failure. Yeah, let's just go with epic incompetence. Much better. Epic incompetence this year and their quest for that. So we'll check in with them, see how things are going, as well as look at the standings and news around Major League Baseball. We will check in with a little bit of football news in the NFL, some primarily Vikings related, signing one of our favorite, most prized veterans on the defensive side of the ball to a new big contract extension. So you'll get that news and my thoughts on it. We'll talk a little bit of WNBA as their season is underway and the Lynx are just crushing it on their quest for their first ever back-to-back championship. I believe it would be their 4th championship total in the franchise history. However, the first 2 times they were not able to win it the following year, and then of course the third being last season. But we will check in on the WNBA season where it stands right now. We've also got French Open tennis championship results to discuss, as well as big news regarding one big named female tennis star and some major trouble that she finds herself in at the moment. We will also be discussing, maybe taking a quick look in, at PGA Golf. I believe we've got our second major of the season coming up next week, and then we've also got UFC to talk about. Holy guacamole, is there UFC news to talk about. We've got a recap UFC 199 that went down last Saturday. My apologies for not previewing that better, but in my defense, shame on national sports media as well as the UFC for not doing anything worth a hoot to promote these last couple UFC 199s. This last week, 198 before it, and 197. I think 197 was McGregor Diaz, so everybody knew about that. But 98 and 99, they've done nothing to promote it. They skipped straight to 200, UFC 200. But of course, we will be not only recapping last week's UFC 199, but we can now officially look forward to UFC 200, maybe discussing a little bit of the announced match card there. There was a huge announcement regarding someone who will be fighting at UFC 200 that you would have never expected in a million years. So you get that news. There was big news regarding future procedures and rules with media attendance and reporters at UFC. And there was also a passing in the world of UFC as well. One Kimbo Slice passed away this past week. May he rest in peace. Also, we will be discussing WWE Pro Wrestling because I like pro wrestling. So we'll be talking about the upcoming Money in the Bank pay-per-view, where things are looking right now in the state of the WWE, as well as discussing last night's live NXT TakeOver The End of the Beginning pay-per-view, which was exceptional, as well as last night's Lucha Underground episode, it's always exceptional, and they've got a big event coming up 2 weeks from now as well. But finally, the last thing that we will be final topic for the show we'll address right now, and that is the passing of the greatest of all time, the one and only Mr. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali died since the last time that we got to sit down and talk sports. He was 74 years old. I shouldn't need to give you a history lesson on his life, the things that he accomplished, the unique circumstances that he found himself in more than once, his impact on not only his sport but professional sports as an entity, entirely throughout America, the United States, as well as the world. He was not just an American sports icon, he was a global sports icon who transcended not only boxing but the world of sports. And I think that is why, people like that is an example of what makes humanity great. People who are capable of taking and receiving from the world as much as anyone could possibly ever dream to or desire, but instead of focusing on and measuring what they consume out of life, they focus their time and efforts on what they can give back to the world, on what they can give, on making a difference, on making positive change in the world and in people's lives, people who they do not know and will never meet. Though that is a special kind of human being, and that is very much the type of man that Muhammad Ali was. So it is with heavy heart that we have a moment of silence for the passing of the greatest of all time, Mr. Muhammad Ali. All right, well, let's get back to the positive, good time that is going balls deep with Scotty Ball. And let's get this show officially underway now, back on track with our hit opening segment. Everybody say it with me. 3, 2, 1. Balls on fire. What has got me, yours truly, Scotty Ball, the one and only, the most on fire, the most fired up, the most heated up. It can be negative or positive, but it's got to be intense. It's got to be fiery. So, what has got me fuming this week in the world of sports? And as always, there's a couple different things we could go with. The words that came out of Ricky Rubio's mouth, and just that whole talker that we'll get to at some point in time tonight, maybe first. That's definitely a worthy candidate. You know how much I bleed purple and gold. I love my and possibly your Minnesota Vikings. Pretty pumped about where things are at there. But let's face it, it's still just OTAs and off-season. It's hard to be super fired up about anything. There's lots going on in the fighting world. Both of the finals. Where are we going here? Well, if I'm going to be truthfully honest, there really only is one area of the sports world that I can honestly start this week's show off on for being fired up about, and that is the world of mixed martial arts, the UFC. Holy guacamole, what is going on? The past 5 to 7 days for the UFC have just been insane. Absolutely insane. We'll just say 7 days. The past 7 days have been absolutely nuts in the world of UFC. We've seen UFC 199 unfold this past Saturday, which we'll go over the complete results for that. Upsets, knockouts, titles changing hands, you name it. It all went down at 199. Other things that went down at 199 are an issue that Dana White is taking up with the media that is pretty freaking extreme. We will discuss that. It's out there. The passing of